Hey friends, today we're going to go thrifting and then I'm going to show you how I style some of my thrifted finds. I know it's hard to believe, but I found these two massive Corbels brand new in the package in the Goodwill bins. They only charged me $5 for the pair. And then I found this pair at the Chanel thrift store. She works a great bundle deal with me every time. I only paid a couple dollars for that pair after I averaged out everything I got. To achieve an authentic chippy antique look, we are going to be using a ton of layering today. Our base coat is DIY Dark and Decrepit. This is an all-natural water-based stain, so forget the stinky oil-based stains, forget all of that cleanup. Grab a jar of DIY Dark and Decrepit and you see how easily it is brushing on. That's going to give us a nice dark base coat on these raw wood corbels. I want to make a really yummy, thick paint for an underlayer on my milk paint. This jar of layered chocolate by DIY Paint is old and it looks like it's pretty dried out. I'm gonna go ahead anyway and add just a couple tiny drops of this DIY Paint frosting. This is a thickening agent. I'm gonna mix it up with the paint and let it sit for several hours while everything else on my project dries. After just about an hour, the paint has thickened up very well and I have got this thick, delicious paint to start creating texture on the corbels. So I've got my layer of DIY Dark and Decrepit on, and now I'll go on with this thick layered chocolate, doing a stippling motion, kind of in the nooks and crannies and corners to create more texture. I'm just doing a very random pattern all over all sides of both corbels. Next up, I mixed up some prairie gray and placed that on with a flat tool. Scraping the paint on with this flat tool is going to give a whole different type of texture. It makes it look like layers of paint built up over time. Now it's time for 2 layers of milk paint. First up, we have the color Proper. If you've never used milk paint before, it is in a powder form and you mix it with water to form your paint. It's a 1-to-1 ratio of warm water to paint. I'm not worried about getting my paint 100% mixed up. If I have a few little lumps in my paint, it's actually going to help my distressing. So here's all the texture we've built up, and now it's time to add a little resist. I'm going to be using Sweet Pickins beeswax, and this is clear beeswax. I'm just going to place it randomly around the corbel, but not covering the whole surface. And I know you've heard wax is last, but if you put it on before your milk paint, it's actually going to cause the milk paint to get extra chippy and crackly in those areas. I'm using my Klingon F50. This is going to cover a ton of surface area. Notice how the consistency on my milk paint is like a melted milkshake. That's the consistency you want. Now I'm just going to brush one nice thick coat over the entire surface. To cause even extra chipping and crackling, I'm going to be using my heat gun and going over the entire surface. This is going to help dry the paint, but if I hold it in one spot a little too long, you'll see it starts to crackle and chip the paint as well. Once all the paint is dry, I take it outside and start sanding it down with some 220 grit sandpaper on my orbital sander. You can see as I sand, all of those layers underneath start to come through. Now, these are really pretty, just like this. We could stop here, but I'm gonna take it up one more notch and add one more layer of milk paint. This time it's the color creamy, and I mixed it up extra thick. I'm gonna put one thick coat over the entire corbel, and I'm not worried about 100% perfect coverage because we will be sanding it back one more time. I'm using all of my Klingon brushes today. I love these Klingon brushes. They're so easy to clean. I've had mine for several years and they're still holding strong. But all you have to do is pop them in a cup of water overnight, and when you go to rinse them out the next morning, the paint virtually just falls out of the bristles. And now it's time for our final sanding. I just used my orbital sander, some 220 grit sandpaper, and knock off all of the excess chippy paint. Here's a reminder of what these corbels looked like before, just raw wood. And here is a look after I gave them a chippy paint finish makeover. Y'all drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Do you love this old chippy farmhouse look as much as I do? I'm gonna use DIY clear wax to seal them up. This is a super soft, buttery smooth wax, very easy to work with. I've got a brush here and just giving them one even coat. I will take a clean paper towel and wipe off any excess when I'm done. These beautiful chippy farmhouse corbels are now available. I'll drop the link down in the description box as well as the links for the products I used. I can't wait to see y'all recreate this look on some of your wooden thrifted finds. If y'all would like to purchase any of my thrifted finds or any of the paint and products I sell, you can visit my website, upcycledbybriana.com, and I will be sure to drop that link in the description box below. For project number 2, I thrifted these 3 wooden cowbells at Thrift World, and red sticker was half off that day, so I paid $4.50 for this set of 3. They're just plain wood, but I knew a super simple DIY, and they are going to come out very cute. First, I just remove all the stickers and the residue with a little bit of lemon oil. I'm using DIY Little Black Dress, and I've got my JRV stencil brush and my letter number trio pack. I use the numbers 1, 2, and 3. Now, to get a good stencil, I'm going to get just a tiny bit of paint on my brush and actually offload most of that paint onto a paper towel. So now I'm using a very dry brush and a very light hand, stippling on my paint. Look how beautiful that stencil turns out. These JRV stencils are nice and thick, so you can use them over and over. If you are a maker or reseller, these are a great product to add into your collection. Now I've got a bit of DIY dark wax, and I'm just going to brush over the tops of these bells a little bit on the corners and edges where it would have naturally got patinaed over time. And then also just rubbing a bit of wax over my number to seal in that paint. I wipe back the excess and blend it all in here with a clean paper towel. You can see the before and after, before the wax and after, just gives a great aging effect. Such a quick and easy makeover, but aren't these adorable, mixed in with some of my beautiful florals and antiques. They are also available up on my site for $19.95. Our last project today is a fun DIY spindle project. I grabbed all of these banister spindles down in Greenwood, Missouri, and now I'm just using my saw and cutting them down to size. I'm using my same Sweet Pickins milk paint, and now I have got Moody Blue, Creamy, and Red Wagon. Yep, Patriotic theme going on here. I love these muted tones. I am giving these raw wood spindles a base coat of that same DIY Dark and Decrepit that I used on the Corbels. I'm also doing a resist effect on these spindles, but I am using Sweet Pickins Dark Beeswax this time, just placing it randomly on these spindles to help the milk paint chip back extra in those areas. Using my Klingon brushes, I'm just giving all of these spindle pieces a coat of either the white, red, or blue milk paint. Not worrying about 100% perfect coverage, but they're mostly covered, as you can see. Now on the blue set here, on the Moody Blue set, I actually went in with DIY white wax as the resist, which made for a fun effect when I go to dry it. You'll see that soon. Notice as I am drying these with my heat gun, it starts to crackle and that wax starts to come through the paint, and it just makes such a fun effect. Once they're all dry, back outside to sand them down. I don't want to sand off all of the crackly paint, so I really just focus on the edges and high spots on the pieces. To seal them up, I've got my DIY clear wax, and I'm just using a towel to cover them with one light coat of wax. Using a drill and drill bit, just drilling some holes down in the tops of the taller spindles. I'll be adding some greenery to 2 of them and a aged American flag to the 3rd. I ordered these flags off of Amazon, and I'm using my DIY Decrepit Dust to give them a faux aged patina. The Decrepit Dust is a lot like a dirt powder, and you just rub it into your surface, whether that's paint or a waxed surface, and I also use it on raw wood. For the smaller pieces, I'm drilling a hole in them as well, but I'm cutting a small piece of rope to look like a wick and turning these into mini firecrackers. And here is the set all finished up. Y'all drop me a comment and let me know if you are going to replicate this DIY spindle set. If you love these thrifted to styled videos, be sure to drop a comment, hit that thumbs up, and let me know so I can continue to bring you the content that you love. Be sure to follow, subscribe, and send this video over to a friend who hasn't discovered the wonderful world of thrifting just yet. And until next time, I'll see y'all later. Bye, friends.